good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all fitting well, and I hope the weather isn't too poor for you. I'm delighted that I've got with us today Nina. Hello, Nina, from the Registers of
Hi.
Scotland, who's going to do a presentation for us about her work, which will be really interesting. I also want to talk to you about the Housing Scotland bill, and I've got one or two other topics to talk about, property fraud, etc., which we'll discuss after Nina has done her presentation. Remember, these events are your events, so any topics that are sort of causing you concern or that you'd like to raise during this presentation and during today's forum, just put something in the chat and we'll deal with it. And also, if you've got topics or you want speakers to come along in future forums and events, again, let me know, and I'll happily look after that and see what we can do for you. So if I may, Nina, over to you, and if you could explain a little bit about your work and services, that'd be really interesting. If you have any questions for Nina, put them in the chat and we'll have a look at them at the end of her presentation. So if I may, Nina, over to you.
Great, thanks very much. As I said, my name is Nina. I think this is really the first time that Registers of Scotland have appeared in this forum, and maybe not be the last. So, as Ian said, maybe you might find there's some subject matters that you would like us to chat about in more detail. Please let us know, and we'd be happy to come along. So, like I said, my name is Nina, and I'm a customer relationship manager at the Registers of Scotland. So I act as a conduit between ROS and our external customers. And my team and I provide assistance with a range of support. For example, if you're needing help to navigate our guidance or our online systems. And it's our job to support and engage with you and your colleagues and be a point of contact to hopefully improve your customer experience. In some circumstances, it's appropriate to be assigned a designated CRM, that's short for Customer Relationship Manager, it's much easier to say. For instance, if you have a particular piece of work that you need assistance with, and we can liaise with the business to find the appropriate people with the right skills to help you. But from our perspective, it would be good to learn how you interact with ROS and how my team and I can support you in any way. By getting involved in conversations plays a crucial role in shaping how we reach our customers. We would like to engage with you, whether it to be facilitate a meeting, provide data on our services, or discuss rejections or open casework. ROS can also offer targeted analysis by way of reports. So, for example, on rejections and training and support for your new employees or trainees. We hold an enormous amount of data, so we're always exploring how to provide this in an accessible way for our customers. When an application has been rejected, this causes extra work for you and us to revisit the application. But we'd like to work with you to avoid unnecessary rejections. And one of the ways we can do this is provide data on the rejections your firm has received. Firms have found this information a valuable training tool, and we have noticed an improvement in reducing applications being rejected. We complement this with regular webinars, such as how to create a successful application. These webinars can also be found on our website, and our knowledge base also has useful information, including links to the common rejections made and how to avoid them. There are also handy checklists that can be useful reference points before you submit your application. We regularly look at overall rejection trends to see how we can support you further. So currently, some of the common rejections are on this slide here: witness not signed, signature not signed, deed not valid, wrong application or the application type submitted, grantor or grantee not sufficient, or a deed is different from the form, that's a very common one, or deed not acceptable. A lot of these we can't probably help with you, as in it's maybe a legal process or a legal aspect to them, but we can actually help you learn what we would accept. We also take some ownership for these as well and regularly review our rejection notifications to ensure we make the rejection reasons clear so you can amend your application as quickly as possible. And I would like to remind you that if we have had your application for more than 3 months, we will not reject it unless it's absolutely necessary to do. A senior caseworker will be in touch with you to collaborate and discuss your options to resolve the issue. So it is our intention to be as pragmatic as possible. We want to support you in getting your application fit for submission and to reduce your rejections. So help us help you. If you feel a rejection report would be something you and your firm would find useful, please get in touch with either myself or our data team. And the data team email address is at the bottom of the page. We can work with you to create data reports to suit your needs, such as house price statistics by geographical area in Scotland or price ranges, and you can also specify time periods. You can also home this down to postcode and districts or sector reports. We can also carry out reports for local authority areas, registration county boundary reports, or commercial sales reports. A handy one to have is a creditor or a FAS, that's your financial accounting system number reports, showing details of applications submitted by specific lender or firm of solicitors and the status of these applications. But we can only offer this service to the specific lender or firm of solicitors involved. We also offer bespoke data reports on your firm's open casework. This data can help you keep track of your applications that are currently pending with us. And we have found that having this information to hand has reduced the amount of times you need to contact our customer services team to inquire about the application. I think I'll just stick on that one, sorry. I was jumping a bit there. So our data matching service is ideal for high volume searches of our land and property registers. And this service matches your data and combines with the information from our registers to create a report tailored to your specific needs. So you can use this service to confirm ownership details, conduct bulk ownership searches of the land and savings register, get details of all deeds to which a particular company was party, or find details of all standard securities in favour of a given lender, and we provide title numbers or savings search sheet numbers for all matches. There are links on our website to view sample reports, or if you wanted to contact the team regarding the cost of a report, please contact our data team. And the email was on the last slide, which is data@ros.gov.uk. Our data reports are one of our commercial products, so we do charge a fee to produce a report. Again, please get in contact with myself or the data team for more information. I'd like to sort of cover some bits and pieces how you can keep informed of what we do in Register Scotland. So to support you through the registration process, we hold guidance and supporting information, which can be found within the knowledge base on our website. So knowledge base provides a single intuitive source for supplementary information on registration, as well as additional support and guidance. And I've highlighted some of the areas within the land and property registration on this slide, but we also have information on our fees, our judicial registers, development plan approval, and how to order copy deeds. One of the ways we have found that have been successful in keeping you up to date with changes is our suite of webinars, which you can find on our events page. Our live webinars are CPD accredited now. However, we also have recorded webinars, but unfortunately, you don't get CPD points for the recorded ones. We held a webinar on dual registration yesterday, and if you couldn't attend but still want to learn more, a recording of the webinar should be available soon. But coming up, we have webinars on challenges of the Title Conditions Act 2003 on Wednesday, the 9th of October, and searching savings on the 31st of October. I've already mentioned that we held a How to Submit a Successful Application webinar a few weeks ago, but other recorded webinars cover things like rectifications, search and scot lists, how to interpret plans, and how to use our digital submission service, to name just a few. We're also keen to hear from you if there are any particular subject matters you feel would be beneficial to run as a webinar. For instance, we have put together just very recently a package of webinars that will help you and your new employees and trainees, which we have listed on this slide, which may fit in with your training needs. My team and I have visited firms to provide a personal touch in delivering scot list webinars to new trainees. It provides a great opportunity to ask questions, and if you would like to discuss this further, again, please get in touch with me or our events team. Another way to keep informed is to sign up for our newsletters and blogs. But I appreciate people are busy and feel that they don't have time to read newsletters, but this is the most efficient way of cascading information to all of our customers at the same time. We back this up with keepers' blogs and social media if appropriate. We also attend events, and I think the paralegal conference was mentioned earlier. Unfortunately, we weren't at that one. But my colleagues and I will be at the Scots Law Conference on the 28th and the 29th of October. I think it's in Edinburgh at this time round. So if you want to come and speak to us, come along and have a chat. Reducing stock levels is our main priority. And we have been very transparent and open about publishing our progress of completing pending applications on our website. We want to build on the progress made in completing open casework within 35 days and continue to accelerate completing older casework as well. We are currently undertaking a huge amount of training for ROS staff, which has helped increase capacity to complete complex applications. Our older casework is more complex, so we're upskilling staff to deal with these types of applications. We will continue to work on the front end as well as tackling the oldest applications, and we're finding a balance and using different mechanisms to achieve a more efficient process, at the same time ensuring quality. Our KPI is to have the majority of casework completed within 35 days by March 2025. And all applications completed within the optimum time of 35 days or a bespoke framework agreed for more complex applications. If you'd like to keep up to date on the progress of us completing open casework, you can track progress through our website. Just put the word performance in the search bar. This web page highlights how we are performing month on month and how this compares with year to year, going back to 2018. The data on these pages also tells you how many cases we hold for each year. And as I said, we want to be as transparent as possible. But we do appreciate there may be an occasion whereby you need to have an application completed urgently. For example, for lending purposes, or anyone can use this service. You don't have to be the submitting agent, and members of the public can also apply. However, we have applied a set of criteria to be able to apply for Expedite, and most of the criteria is evidence-based. So we will ask you to provide information on the reason for Expedite, such as a written refusal to transact from another party, a mortgage offer, confirmation from a lender of potential panel removal, and understanding of any commercial impact, for instance, liquidation or economic consequences. We will work closely with you to ensure we meet the date your application is needed. Our customer services team are our frontline help, and you can contact the team either by phone or email. You can request copies of documents from the Land Register and Seasons Register. But we now have a self-serve facility to obtain deeds from the Sazies Register through ScotList. Our online service team will set you up with a business log-on to access our e-products, such as e-forms and ScotList. The team is also there to help with any application questions you may have. Our customer services team received 93,000 frontline inquiries last year, and this comprised of 61,000 emails and 32,000 calls, and they're available between 8 and 5, Monday to Friday. If after searching the Land Register or Sazies Register you can't find what you're looking for, you can ask our property information team to carry out a search for you. And there are a couple of ways to do this, depending on the information that you have to hand. Obviously, it's much easier to search if you have a postal address, but if you don't have a postal address, you can use our title investigation service. And you can find simple videos that can help you understand how to interpret a title sheet, understanding real burdens, and finding a property boundaries. As I said at the top of my presentation, you can also contact the customer relationship team, and ROS have approximately 1,200 staff, and it would be impossible to put all their names and functions on our website. So we can act as conduit to help you find what you're looking for, either it be guidance or bespoke assistance with a particular piece of work. So I'd just like to end to say, please get in touch if you'd like to set up a meeting with us and introduce ourselves and see how we can help. Thank you very much.
Nina, thank you very much indeed. That was really, really interesting. And Nina, we've had Amanda sent a message saying she'd love some training on a number of different things. So what I'll do, if I may, Nina, is I'll drop you a note afterwards, and if we could get you or your colleagues coming along in subsequent events to discuss some of the topics that Amanda's raised, and I'm sure there are other attendees that have other topics too that like some more detailed assistance with. And I think the other thing, Nina, again, is, if people have sort of individual issues, obviously a forum such as this isn't an appropriate time or place. But if people have questions or issues, can you act as a sort of conduit or as a sort of a mailing house for anything that I get in or that comes into us?
Absolutely. That's why I've
lovely.
left this slide
Brilliant.
up, if you can see it.
Yeah.
Please go in touch, because as I said earlier, we have just got so many staff that are absolute experts in their field. So it'd be impossible for one person to know everything.
Absolutely.
And I can find that right person for you.
Fantastic, thank you. And the other thing, again, Nina, if you're organising or if there are new webinars or anything coming up like that, if you let us know, we can publish them on our website. And again, with forums and things, mention the fact that you've got events coming along. And what I'll do is I'll keep an eye out for your newsletters and blogs, etc. And again, I'm happy to share with attendees anything like that, because clearly you're making it abundantly obvious that this is a participation. This is a participant and teamwork required with regard to the conveyancers and your good officers, as it were. So anything we can do to assist in connection with that relationship, we're delighted to get involved with. So Nina, I know you are really busy, so thank you so much for coming along today. As I say, I'll share with you the topics that Amanda would like, and indeed any other people would like, and let's see if we can work together to hold events and for you and your colleagues to come along at some point in the future. Really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for the presentation. It was brilliant.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
No, it's fine.
Speak to you later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. So that was really interesting. Again, as I was saying to Nina there, people have sort of particular issues and questions, etc. And Nina made it quite clear that, she couldn't deal with individual matters. But if there's topics for discussion or anything like that, let me know and we'll organise it. If there are particular questions that you have, you've got Nina's contact details, or again, I'm happy to assist and do whatever I can. So back to the main forum today. I'm really interested in any topics that you would like to explore. While we're doing that, I've got some things I would like to talk about. But again, massive thank you to our sponsors, Stewart Title. It's really great to work with Stewart Title. Lovely people, and I love dealing with them because they organise events such as this and are happy to support events such as this. It is your forum. The topics for discussion are your topics. And as I say, unless I know what you want to talk about or what you would like me to explore or examine, it's difficult for me to assist. So if you have any topics today, put them in the chat box and we'll have a look at them. I've got some topics that I would like to talk about. Some of them are on the slide. I'll just try and find the slide if I can, if I take control. Bear with me. Hopefully you should be able to see the topics that I have. Here we are. First topic I've got is the Housing Scotland Bill. I don't know if you've seen this, have you? I was looking at it last night and there's a number of things there that I think are really interesting. Not law yet, but obviously being proposed. And the idea is that the legislation, it seems, is aimed at sort of creating a number of things that I want to give you a heads up with. Local authorities assessing rent conditions and reporting to Scottish ministers who can designate rent control areas. Are you aware of that? And the idea is if a rent control area is designated, then the position is it would be designated for a 5-year period and the rent payable under a private residential tenancy of a property in the area, unless it's an exempt property, could not be any more than the amount specified in the regulations. The idea is that this sort of cap, as it were, is subject to review, but it may be possible, depending on market conditions, that there isn't an increase in rent, depending on conditions. So it's a really interesting bit of legislation that's being proposed. The idea is that the cap would exist for new and existing tenancies, and rent could be increased not more than once in any 12-month period and not during the first 12 months of a lease term, applying to properties both in and out of a rent-controlled zone or area. Again, draft bill says there will be exemptions, but we don't have details yet. Anyone come across this or anyone interested in it, or do you think it's a matter of concern? You know, the whole idea, I think, sitting behind it is to try and ensure that the rental market is controlled, that rents are controlled, and that local authorities have the power to regulate rent in their geographical areas. Really interesting thing. If anyone's interested, drop me a note because I've got an article that was in the Estates Gazette on the issue, which you could have a look at. The next thing I want to talk about is something that, again, is interesting. I know there's a Edinburgh Conveyancing Forum and a Glasgow Conveyancing Forum. I know that the Glasgow Conveyancing Forum met on the 24th of September, I think, and there was talk of it being sort of dissolved, as it were, which is sad news, to be honest with you. I know the Edinburgh Conveyancing Forum is active, and I'm keen to promote it, and indeed Scottish Conveyancers Forum. And again, I'm interested, does anyone know how active any of those three organisations are? Well, sorry, Edinburgh is active. Scottish Conveyancing Forum and Glasgow Conveyancing Forum. It seemed at one point that the Glasgow Conveyancing Forum was really active and, real attribute, but it seems to have sort of quietened down a bit. And I was horrified to see this meeting on 24th of September. Does anyone know what happened at that meeting? Or do you know if the Glasgow...
I think it was, the meeting was, I got an email a couple of days ago to say that the meeting wasn't core 8 originally. They got a core 8 meeting and they'd formed a new...
committee, good.
They'd formed a new board and they were hopeful of the whole thing continuing. So it looked as though there was a new board in place, Ian, and it is to continue.
John. Go on, John.
I can let you have any details that I get in because I usually get the details in of when the meetings. I can send them on to Ian. That's not a problem.
Well, I was going to reach out if the worst in existence. The point I was going to make, John, I'm happy to reach out and again, collaborate with them and indeed the Edinburgh Conveyancing Forum. I think it's we're all sort of singing from the same hymn sheet, and it would be a useful thing to do. So thanks for that, John. Thanks for the update. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was some issues relating to property fraud. And I was reading, I can't remember, well, it might have been on Lockton's website about Glasgow CID having some advice with regard to ID documentation, in particular driving licenses. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but when I looked on the Glasgow CID website or the Police Scotland website, I couldn't find anything on this issue of fake driving licenses, but I have found another website. I'll dig it out and put it on line for people or refer people to it at the next forum that we have. Again, fake documentation is an issue. You can, with regard to driving licenses, check on the DVLA website, evidently, but there is a website that explains the sorts of things that are indicators of fake driving licenses. I haven't seen if there's an equivalent relating to passports, but I have dealt with situations in the past. I used to do some work for the insolvency service in Northern Ireland, and I used to see lots of sort of property fraud related issues, and the amount of times people would be creating sort of false personalities using false documentation was pretty scary. I remember one incident where a client in Northern Ireland had said that his bank was Lloyd's Bank and the branch was the Belfast branch, and I think at the time Lloyd's Bank didn't have a branch in Belfast. I think the nearest Lloyd's Bank branch to Belfast was in Stranraer. So, immediately there was an indicator that there was something bizarre going on with regard to a particular transaction. The reason I mentioned property fraud is I was just looking at an insurance broker that deals with professional indemnity insurance in England, and they were saying across in the United Kingdom, sort of seller identity fraud is still a major issue. To be honest, I thought the idea of seller identity fraud was sort of disappearing or had disappeared. But no, there it is on the sort of top 10 list of issues that can cause problems or claims. On that front, again, with regard to property fraud, absolutely essential that not only do you verify ID for clients, but you keep it under sort of constant review. Other topics that I had in the past, early on, we discussed the conveyances, the checklist that was produced by Paul Brown, the guy in Forfar, and Paul allowed me to distribute that checklist. If anyone hasn't seen it or wants a copy of it, let me know, because I was just looking at it again recently, and it really is a useful document. And the other thing that I've seen, and I don't think I've mentioned this to people before, is that there is a checklist for investigating title. Has everyone seen that? So it's an examination of title checklist. Has anyone seen it or anyone got it or use it? And again, interesting with regard to checklists, etc. I'm talking to a few companies that are producing sort of case management systems for the Scottish conveyancing process. And again, interested in if anyone's using any case management systems, etc., and what their views are relating to them. And the other thing, again, that I've been doing is over the summer, I've had a number of meetings with search companies about product, about ideas, etc. And I'm hopeful that we'll have some search companies coming along to these forums in the future to discuss product, to discuss assisting the conveyancing profession, and to discuss developments, etc. Other topics that I have that I wanted to talk about, climate change. Again, I touched on this in the past, the idea of a climate change report for clients. The Law Society of England and Wales produced guidance 2 years ago, generally for solicitors, about climate change. And the Law Society is currently issuing, or is about to issue, specific guidance for conveyancers concerning climate change. It isn't on general release yet. I've seen it because I do a bit of work with the Law Society from time to time, and I've seen it, but I'm subject to an embargo because I can't talk about it until it's launched. But has anyone had a client who's asked about sort of climate change issues? And I tell you what else I've had this week, which I've never had before. How about this? A client asking and a surveyor asking about civil aviation flight paths. over a property. Now, all right, if you're living in the middle of Edinburgh near the airport, or you're living near Prestwick, or if you're near military bases, I can understand how, air traffic and noise, etc., could be an issue. But I've never in all my career as a conveyancer or advising and assisting conveyancers or solicitors or property lawyers ever had a client asking me about airspace issues. Has anyone ever had that? It's certainly not your job as a conveyancer to undertake research with regard to air traffic. My point would be, if you're near to an airport, it's going to be an issue. Evidently, you can do a search that will tell you about air traffic corridors and flight paths. But the problem with that is the Civil Aviation Authority will change flight paths, etc. Susan, by the way, thanks for that. As I say, I've made a note of it. We'll do it. Yeah, coastal erosion, David. We've had that before, and yeah, certainly that's an interesting point. But not sort of climate change generally. Yeah. And if anyone else has any issues that they'd like Nina and her colleagues to deal with, drop me a note and we'll make sure we dealt with that. But going back to this point about climate change, it's an interesting thing. I think as a conveyancer, it's not my job to investigate climate change. It exists. Clients should be aware of it. There are reports that can be obtained relating to it, but that's as far as it goes. Just going back to this point then about airspace, has anyone ever had a client that said, or a surveyor that said, hey, there's an issue here? I've never seen it. And again, I'd be saying to a client, look, you should be carrying out your own investigations if this is a matter of concern. But I repeat, you can do a search that will tell you about civil aviation corridors, flight paths and corridors, etc. David, airspace isn't, well, what about this then? A client that wants to develop airspace, have you ever had that in either a residential or commercial context? In other words, wants to build up over, above the existing property. I see it a lot in commercial issues and commercial transactions, never in a residential transaction, to be honest with you. I have had clients who wanted to expand cellars or want to build underground garages. So has anyone ever had that? Hi, Susan. Susan's got a question. Is anyone involved in the additional report being proposed to be added to the home report? Okay. So again, thanks for that, Susan. Anyone come across that? So Susan, excuse my ignorance, this would be a surveyor, yeah? And what would this additional report include, Susan? I'm intrigued. Is it sort of part of this material information malarkey, if I can call it that? Which has got everyone hot and bothered about, hasn't it? Is that what it's about, Susan? And again, can anyone help Susan on this one? I'm going to make a note of that, actually, just to have a look at it and see what I can find. So I'm just going to take a photograph of that, if I can. Bear with me, and we'll have a look at it. But anyone else help on that one? And I'm going to also make a note of Amanda's question while I'm on that. That's fine. Great. Yeah. Yeah, all right. So estate agents are in a position to provide a report. Yeah, I've got this sort of on my desk in lots of different contexts, Susan. And again, there's issues about, who's doing what and what as a conveyancer I'm expected to advise on or check. And it's a problem, isn't it? But I'm sure it's all to do with material information. Yeah. So yeah, Susan, we can get your microphone on, I'm sure. So can we make sure Susan's microphone's on, please, and then fire away, Susan? I'm really interested in this because it is something that I know conveyancers across the spectrum are really concerned about. Oh, not necessarily concerned about. It's just a question of how you deal with it. So if we can get Susan's microphone on, that would be brilliant. If not, if anyone else can assist. Right, Marie, is it National Trading Standards? I think it is, Marie. If I'm reading what Susan's saying correctly, that's what it's about. And it's this idea about the production of information and the quality and standard of that information, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, can I?
Yeah, hello, hi. Yeah, of course.
It wasn't working to start with.
Yeah, great.
That was me, not Natasha.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah.
Because I'm part of a surveying firm, obviously the Home Report in Scotland has been here since, 2010?
Yeah.
Something like that. And this is an additional report that's to be attached to the Home Report potentially, or provided by private searchers. But it's because the issue really is that it's to be very limited price, and I believe Landmark have already presented a proposed method of presenting the information. It's going to cover things like broadband speeds and where your local information is going to come from in terms of who's available for power and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they're wanting to get information about whether it's in coal mining areas, the specific property is in coal mining areas, whether it's got any planning issues, what the title situation is. And obviously, up to this point, the estate agents have not been interested in that aspect of the property title at all. All they're interested in is what comes in with the property questionnaire and the Home Report and get it on the market. So we're really interested in knowing whether people are looking to have this provided automatically and who they think should be the provider of that information, because from our perspective, the fact that we also provide property inquiry certificates and legal reports, there's a kind of crossover, and would we have a conflict of interest and things like that. So obviously it's the ESPC that are leading this, but I know that Aberdeen are interested as well. So it's just really in the forum here, I was just taking the opportunity to chuck it out live and see what everybody thought about it.
So anyone got any comments on it? Marie, again, you've heard what Susan is saying. Susan, I was speaking at a conference, was it yesterday? I was doing some training yesterday, and this issue arose, and I was speaking at a conference last week, the same thing. Everyone's sort of baffled as to the relationship between estate agent, client, and lawyer, and the sort of blurring of the lines of responsibility. So it's really an interesting topic.
That's really
the
key for us.
Yeah.
To find out what's going on, because it's maybe part of a forward regulation of estate agents. Yeah. Is really just what they're looking at.
Yeah.
We're just trying to figure it out, basically.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, so thanks for that.
Thank
Marie
you.
just mentioned in the chat there,
Yeah,
material
I see
information
that,
guidance. Have you looked at that?
I haven't, so I'm going to take a note of that. And
thanks, Marie. It is an issue, and again, the government's thinking has always been, if we can provide upfront information, A, we're going to speed up conveyancing transactions. B, we're going to reduce the amount of drop off, and we're probably going to be saving potential buyers money. So it's across all countries. It's the same point, and again, in England, I can tell you that lawyers are sort of worried about it from a claims perspective, in that, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to get instructions early from a seller client or a buyer client so that we can assist with regard to the provision of information to estate agents? Or are we in a situation where the client will be dealing directly with the estate agent to start with and then instructing us? In which case, do we have to backtrack and look at what they've told the estate agent or what's been provided? So that's where I'm coming from it, Susan. It seems to me that other than Marie, no one else has sort of got this on their radar. Is that right? David, what do you think? And anybody else? Ewan? Jim, anyone else got any issues on this? Because it's a really interesting point. Susan,
thank you.
Are there any firms of lawyers that you're dealing with, and have you had sort of a flavour of their thoughts or not, or is it just you really haven't sort of encountered any sort of positivity or negativity yet? Debbie's saying never heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, for the people part of the estate agents world. It's been around for quite some time.
Yes.
And commercial property, I think, have been
Yes.
providing an awful lot more information in their sales particulars always anyway. But this seems to be moving more into the residential market. So I just wanted to chuck it into the forum since we were talking.
Thank you. No, that's really kind. I'm going to have a look at that guidance there that Marie's mentioned.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you what, Susan, if
too.
you come along the next one, I'll do a bit more work and see what else I can find out about it.
That's the 4th of November. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'll tell you what. Thanks, Susan. So, Amanda, right, again, hey, I'm lucky, aren't I, today? Spray foam insulation. Right. I've come across this a lot in the south coast, Bournemouth down there. I first came across this, Amanda, 2 or 3 years ago, with sellers selling property, having spent a fortune on spray foam insulation, having been sold what a fantastic product this is for efficiency, home efficiency, heating efficiency, etc. They then sell the property. Surveyor comes in and says your property is unmortgageable. So buyer comes in, surveyor comes in, property unmortgageable, and the issue is, how do you get rid of it? It's brilliant to apply, but once it's in there, Amanda, it becomes a nightmare. All right. Just been looking at selling search data. Interesting. John, thanks for that. Portly years ago, big on it was the tech firm. Okay, John, I'm going to have a look at that too, if I may. That's interesting. And Susan, there's an interesting point. So going back to thanks. Yeah, John, send it across to me, could you please? And Susan, I'll share that with you. So has anyone else heard about this spray foam insulation issue? And then, Amanda, tell you what you'll get from time to time. You'll get another surveyor who says it's not an issue. So you get some lenders who say it's, major issue, stumbling block that will prevent a sale, get rid of it. And then you'll have other surveyors and other lenders saying not a problem. So it's an interesting one. Again, anyone had any issues with the point Amanda's making there? Yeah, structural surveyors and building surveyors with regard to roof structure. I've had all of that. And yeah, Amanda, I'm happy if it's a major issue, then we can get someone in. Yeah, Debbie was saying an issue as well. So it's the issue of it affecting structure, isn't it? But I know it's a devil of a problem to get rid of, so as I say, it's so easy to apply, and people have been sold it on the basis of its energy efficiency. Fantastic. No one mentioning it. It could potentially be a deal breaker with regard to sales. It's not the same, Francis. It's not the same. Well, wrong. It's the same concept. But the idea is it's the damage, the potential damage to structure and load-bearing issues, as I understand it, and as Amanda says, condensation causing problems. And I haven't had the fire hazard point, Amanda. Stewart, hi Stewart. Spray, yeah, it's implied by air gap must be maintained with risk of rot. Yeah, that's Stuart's on the point there. Okay, so Stewart, is there some form of standard, British standard or kite mark or something that people should be looking for, or are there contractors that could, if other contractors that provide this service and utilize this product, but are aware of this risk and can mitigate against it or eliminate the risk that we're talking about? Stuart, if you could help me on that, that would be brilliant. Okay. Yeah, Debbie, changing lenders. I had one where a seller, and I'm sure it was in Bournemouth, had 2 potential buyers, different lenders, different surveyors, both saying, problem, get rid of it. And I forget how it was a stupid amount of money to sort the job out, just stupid. So again, something to be aware of. Talking about something to be aware of, has anyone had any issues with bamboo? Japanese knotweed we talked about last time, didn't we? Anyone had any issues with regard to bamboo? Again, down in Kent yesterday, someone was asking about, this type of bamboo that throws runners out and can be as destructive as Japanese knotweed. Again, interesting. Okay, so anyone got any other topics to talk about? There's lots of things there for the future, definitely. I'm really interested in John's point there about the GSPC looking at selling search data. Really interesting. Right, Stewart. Thanks, Stewart. It should be installed by boarding over the rafters. Yeah, all right. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. All right, thanks very much, John, on the Great Western Road in Glasgow, bamboo problem. Yeah. There's different types of bamboo, isn't there? There's some that stays as a clump, and there's others that throws runners off and goes crazy. Because we've got, actually, I look out this window, we've got some bamboo. Luckily, it's the clump variety, and it's sort of in a massive pot, so it won't hopefully cause us any problems. But it is an issue, and it's supposed to be the next Japanese knotweed problem, isn't it? Okay. While we're on, let's have a look at what else I had a note of. Yeah. Anyone heard anything about climate change and climate change reports then from the Law Society? Anyone had anything? And thanks, John, for sending me that PowerPoint there. That's great. Really appreciate it. And as I say, going back to that airspace thing, we're back to the point I mentioned ages ago. Scope the retainer so the client understands and appreciates the limitations of due diligence and the work that you do relating to it. That is so, so important. Okay, while I'm waiting for some other topics to come along, there's something else I wanted to talk about, which is 4th of November. We've got Sandra from Pollock Fairbridge coming along, and we're looking for guest speakers. Again, we've got some ideas, haven't we, already about this issue with regard to spray foam. We can get someone on that, I'm fairly confident. Stewart, I'm sure you know people, or you could come along and give some guidance on that if you'd like to. And the other thing that I would be interested in is someone coming along and just talking about this issue with regard to the search data and upfront information. We'll try and get someone to come along and talk about that at some point too. Okay, what else have I got on my list? Yeah, I tell you what I had. I was reading a sort of case study produced by Lockton's a while ago concerning instructions. Again, useful. And what he was saying there was a scenario where the head of conveyancing department gets a task in from an existing client with regard to sale of land and transmits the task, the transaction, to a junior member of staff. And the junior member of staff isn't fully appraised of the instructions from the client, and therefore proceeds with the transaction, having the partner having been aware that the instruction was that part of the site was to be retained on the basis it had potential development value, but the conveyancer actually doing the task wasn't made aware of the fact that land was to be retained, and proceeded to conduct the transaction on the basis that it was the sale of the entirety of the land that the seller owned. And the point made by Lockton, who are the brokers, with regard to master policy, was do make sure that when you are transmitting files from one member of staff to another, that the member of staff that is getting the matter is fully appraised of the transaction. What I always say is that if you're getting a file from a colleague or you're getting instructions from a senior member of the team as a junior member of the team, it's always worth just cross-checking with whoever's giving you the instructions within the firm exactly what your instructions are, and just sort of touching base with the client. The problem with touching base with the client is you'll sometimes have a client say, well, hang on a minute, I've just told your colleague all about this. So I think the key is to make sure that when you're getting instructions, whoever in the firm's getting instructions, that there's some form of record of what the instructions are, and that's transmitted down. I was surprised by the example. Obviously, it's an example that Loughton's have encountered in connection with what I assume is a claim against a Scottish firm in the past. And I was surprised because I thought, surely this sort of thing can't happen these days. But clearly, Loughton's are of the view it has happened, and the profession needs to be aware of it. Again, dealing with another insurance broker just recently, the need for attendance notes was emphasised again as a cause of claim. So, making an attendance note where issues arise in a transaction, highlighting to client the existence of those issues and making sure that the issue is closed off, even if the situation is there is still an issue and the client has taken a view with regard to the matter and is still happy to proceed, necessary to record what the issue is and what you've advised and what the client then wants to do. And the other point, again, from the insurers, I don't know whether I mentioned this to you before, but when you're scoping the retainer with regard to either a seller or a buyer, important to keep the retainer under review. So if you've told the client you're not going to be doing something, so I'm not going to be advising you on civil aviation corridors, or I'm not going to be advising you on subterranean issues with regard to the property that you're buying, and then as the transaction progresses, you're becoming embroiled in doing something that you said you weren't going to do. It's important that you expand the retainer to limit your potential liability in the scope of your work in connection with the additional work that you're doing. That also gives you an opportunity to say to the client, look, I need to charge you more for the work that I'm doing as a consequence of this work beyond the original retainer. The insurer that I was speaking to was saying one of the things they're really worried about is we say something that we're not doing at the start of the transaction and we end up doing it just to try and get the transaction over the line, as it were, without expanding the retainer to make sure the client is aware of the limitations with regard to the additional work that we're doing. I thought it was a really interesting point. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is our conference, 25th of March. We're looking at Bells Hill. Again, if you'd like to come along, let me know about it and we'll sort it out. The whole idea of these forums, as I say, is to give you a sort of sounding board for issues and discussion. And again, post-COVID, more and more I'm attending conferences, etc. And I have to say, when I attend them, the amount of benefit that attendees derive, not necessarily the sort of chalk and talk sort of CPD training, but just meeting up with colleagues, discussing issues, etc., is so beneficial and so useful. So as I say, we're going to try and organise this conference. I know that CLT has a conference looming, and as we were saying earlier, Society of Paralegals have a conference or two conferences every year. There's certainly room for another one, and we'll be collaborating and working with those organisations and others to make sure these events are useful. And as I say, Stewart Title, delighted to say they're one of the main sponsors with regard to what we're proposing to do. Okay, so anyone else got any burning questions or burning issues? Talking of there's the thing. Talking of burning issues, did I read somewhere about the Scottish government being concerned about wood burners and about proposing to ban or limit their use or something? And was it? Sure, it was. I know it's being talked about in England, but I'm sure. Yeah, John. Okay, right. Surely that can't have legs, can it? Surely not. But I tell you what, I have dealt with issues where a wood burner hasn't been correctly fitted to a chimney, And I've seen that invalidating household insurance, John. I don't know whether you've seen that. So, you know, again, if your client's buying a property with a wood burner, it's necessary to check or get the client to check the status of the wood burner itself. But it's also necessary to check that it's been correctly fitted to the chimney. Yeah. So it's been suspended, David. All right, okay. Yeah, and smoke control zone shut on the pet. Yeah, I get that, Amanda. But I dealt with a horror story a few years ago where a property was badly damaged by fire, and it was established that the cause of the fire wasn't the wood burner and wasn't the chimney. It was the connection between the two, and that invalidated the household insurance policy. And I think the lawyer that acted for the homeowner was sued in negligence with regard to a failure to advise the client of the need to have a report or an inspection of the wood burner and its connection. And I think also there was an issue there about the chimney not having been swept and about the quality of wood that had been burnt in the past by a previous owner. You know, and again, that's just getting ridiculous. But warn a client if you're buying a property with a wood burner that it may be appropriate to have someone inspect it just to check A, its status, and B, its connectivity. Okay, we've got 3 minutes left. Anyone else got any topics? So hopefully, David, that doesn't go any further. I mean, I suppose they are dirty and they do throw out chemicals, etc. But, you know, I was sort of mortified when I read it and thought that can't be right. But banned in new houses, but not banned now. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Ewan. Thanks for that. Okay, that's good to hear. Okay, any other comments then? Any other suggestions before we finish? 2 minutes to go before we finish. Yeah, Amanda, too close to, yeah, get that. And there are some stoves, aren't there, that can burn anything, and others can, you know, and again, there's issues with regard to that. Yes, Stuart, you think it's going to come back into new builds? Okay. Derek, great point. Hi, Derek, by the way. Cavity filling and roof insulation, etc., and the spray foam. I don't know about companies providing or installing its liability. Derek, it's something I'll have a look at, but good point. Thanks for that. Don't know. Anyway, we've talked about lots of things today, haven't we? Really interesting. So, all right, to summarize then, we've got someone coming along next time. Massive thank you to Nina for coming along today. We're going to go back at Nina and her colleagues to discuss some of the things that Amanda wanted discussing, and I think Debbie wanted something discussing as well. Marie, thank you very much for your material information guidance. And Susan, thank you for raising that. And thank you for everyone coming along. I really, really enjoy these things because, you know, all sorts and everything comes out of the woodwork, which is great, if you pardon the pun. Again, you know, it's amazing how much knowledge you all have. Just so you know, I'm going to reach out to Glasgow and Edinburgh, probably forums, and just see if we can get them along and make sure that they appreciate that we are wanting to collaborate. And if anyone's got any events or comes across any events that they would like publicising, just as I mentioned to Nina, we're happy to do that. David, thanks for that. Register's going to a little white areas that appear between registered. Oh, gosh. David, that's one of my bugbears. Yeah, and what do? You'd hope, wouldn't you, that common sense would prevail and we'll just incorporate it into a registered title. But even when you own both sets of title that surround the little white area, certainly in England and Wales, the Land Registry is so reluctant to do anything about it. So yeah, we'll ask that question, David. It's a good one. Okay. And again, any other questions for Registered Scotland, we'll happily put those things. Stewart, no comment. All right, my friend. Okay, listen, it's 1:30. Thank you so much for coming along today. For once, looking outside, we've had quite a decent day. We've had some horrendous weather But it looks as if it's all right today. So stay safe, everyone. Look forward to seeing you in November. Remember, keep feeding me questions, issues, topics, concerns, and we can prepare in readiness for the next occasion. But again, come along and fire topics at us during the event itself. Hey, listen, thank you. Nothing to do with me. Massive thanks to Stewart Title. Talk to John and talk to Liz and the team about product need, requirement, etc. Great people to deal with and helpful as ever. And thank you all. Really enjoyed it. And stay safe. All right. Thanks, everyone. Cheers, Karen. Nice to hear from you. Take care. Bye-bye. Marie, as ever, thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.